I guess, if everyone is here. I don't know, Mr. Mustafa, if everyone came here. Okay, so this is the second session. There will be 5 presenters, including me. But if you let me, I will be presenting my presentation as the last one, because I don't want to make people, I don't want people to wait. So there will be our guests from China, I guess, from Hong Kong, Wanxin and Wanxin, with the title, The Efficacy of COVID-Forced Online Education, a case study from Hong Kong. And after that, Mrs. Sibel Orhan, she will be presenting the relationship between sociology and marketing, a discussion of intersectional feminist approach in the field of marketing. And after that, Male Ayşetu Makwen. Excuse me if I am pronouncing your names wrong, because the names are not familiar to our language. So if I'm making any mistake, please excuse my pronunciation. So Male Ayşetu Makwen will be presenting international press implementation in Africa, and Granit Ajdini, populist discourse in rejecting the final agreement between Kosovo and Serbia. So each presenter will be having 10 minutes each for their presentation. And after the presentation, there will be 5 minutes for Q&A session, question and answers. And I want you all to be loyal to our timing, because there are 2 more sessions after that. So we need to be loyal to our schedule. So from all presenters, I request to be loyal to 10 minutes limit, and then 5 minutes for Q&A. I will be warning you about the timing if necessary, but please, you just finish your presentation in 10 minutes, then we will pass to the Q&A session. Okay, I spoke a lot, I know. Now I need to finish my presentation, and the first presenter will be Wanxin Wanxin, The Efficacy of COVID-Forced Online Education, a case study from Hong Kong. Dr. Chan, are you online? Please open your microphone now. Okay. Now,
can you hear me?
Hello, I can hear you, but I don't know if the participants, do you hear?
Can everybody hear? Okay, good. So I should share my screen from here.
Excuse me, everybody, herkes duyuyor mu şu anda? Okay. Okay, doctor, you can start. You have 10 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. So you should see my screen already, right?
Please, can you also introduce yourself before beginning?
Okay, so this paper is by me and my colleague, Dr. Wanxin Li, and the title is The Efficacy of COVID-Forced Online Education, a case study from Hong Kong. We both teach at City University of Hong Kong, and we have the experience of teaching online, surely. And last year, summertime, we had conducted a survey on the students' experience on online education and online classes. That's why we have this research. So let me start. The title itself, tells why the main concept of this research, because we are saying, well, online education is not a new thing. Distance learning, distance program have been there for a long time, and many scholars have already talked about, discussed the advantages of online teaching or classes. For example, people do not need to travel. Yeah, it reduces the time and cost for travel or commuting. And it also allows participation of overseas experts, teachers, professionals, for example. And it also led people to stay home or stay at our environment that they are familiar with, and when they are learning. So there are different kinds of advantages. But what happened in this past semesters around the world, I would say, is the fact that this massive use of online education is not a natural phenomenon. It's actually forced by the COVID pandemic. So some scholars already talk about this as an emergency remote teaching. It's not a natural one, it's or well-planned one, it's an emergency one. So we call it ERT. Supposedly, a good, well-planned online program should be with detailed design, well-prepared teachers with good IT skills, etc. But this kind of forced online education then caught a lot of educators by surprise and unprepared. Well, what we find, actually both teachers and students may not have prepared well for these kind of challenges. And that's why last year we conducted this survey, and we find a number of outcomes. And mainly we work on, how students perceive the advantages and disadvantages of online teaching, as well as all those advocacy issues. So since the presentation time is so short, so I will let my colleague, Dr. Lee, to introduce to you a few of those major findings. Actually, we have a long survey, but we need to shorten the presentation. Wanxin, when you start, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. Yeah, it's a pleasure and also honor to join you at this Congress. As my colleague Yuwa has mentioned, we did a survey in the summer of 2021. And then for that project, what we were trying to achieve is to find the variations in the students' feedback in their evaluation of their online learning experiences, and also what kind of difficulties they have encountered. As you may know, Hong Kong is a highly packed city, and most of the homes are very small, and the students may not be able to have a separate room or a study room for them to use when they are doing the online classes. And especially in Hong Kong, there has been a culture of, you may say it's consumerism. A lot of students consider themselves as consumers of the higher education, and they want to have good grades without necessarily putting in sufficient efforts and time to study. So we want to know, during the online teaching and learning period, what kind of efforts they have put in their studies, especially when they have the freedom of deciding the pace and also the participation in the class activities. So in the sample, we were very lucky to have altogether 758 students from 9 different schools and colleges and departments with science and non-science backgrounds, from like engineering, business, and also creative media that is close to the art major. And then what we have found mainly are the differences between the students' perceptions of the effectiveness of the online classes. The overall, students majored in science majors. They didn't really like the online teaching that much, or as much as that of the non-science major students, because they found it difficult for them to participate in group projects and also doing tests and exams online, or to work on problems or inquiry-based learning, especially when they have to do scientific projects or internships. Those are quite difficult for them to work on. But then there are some bright side of the online classes. The scientific or the science major students like the online classes for reasons that are different from those of the non-science major students. Because for science students, they can watch the recordings and they can learn on their own. But then for non-science students, they like the online teaching because it can save time, especially they do not need to spend as much time on the road as they had to in the past. And also the non-science major students use chat box more. In that way, they could still enjoy a certain extent of interactive features offered by the Zoom. However, what we have found that is to some extent alarming was the self-contradictions reported by the students themselves. They usually would want to have the recordings, and also they request the teachers to make the recordings available. However, when they were asked about what they plan to do to improve the effectiveness of online teaching in the future, a very small percentage of the students indicated that they plan to watch the recordings when they have time. So in that way, it seems like the students are kind of continuing to see themselves as customers in the online education mode. And to have the recordings is one of the services to be offered by the universities and also by the teachers. But even though they are giving the opportunities, they may not.
You have 2 minutes left, please.
Okay, this is the second last slide. And then for the, especially for the disadvantages, they see a lack of interaction is one of the biggest disadvantages of the online teaching. However, when they were asked whether they want to have structured interactive sessions or to play online games together, and a large majority of the students refused to take advantage of those opportunities. And lastly, we tried to identify what are the impacting factors that would affect the perceived learning outcomes. We found overall the difficulties in terms of unsuitable home environment and also other disadvantages associated with online teaching, especially learning opportunities or the taking online assessment and the texts, etc., would negatively affect the perceived effectiveness of online teaching. But the learning materials and also how they can arrange the activities, especially in terms of the level of autonomy or higher level of autonomy they have when they do classes online, those actually have helped the students to improve the learning outcomes. So those are the key findings that we have found by far. There are more details in the slide, in the following slides, but in the interest of time, we wouldn't really go over them in detail, but if you have any questions, then we can pull out the results for discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much for being loyal to the timing. Exact 10 minutes. Thank you very much. Now we are passing to the QA session, but before that, I want to thank you for this beautiful presentation. Forced online education is a big problem that we experienced, I think, all over the world, but especially here in Turkey. There were many students that they don't have any access to any computer or internet. So how they will be participating in online education? I have one question to you, Dr. Chan or Wanxin, one of you can reply. What is the percentage of access to internet or computer in Hong Kong? Because in Turkey it is very low, and many students doesn't have any internet connection in where at the town that they are living. What is the situation in Hong Kong?
Well, Wanxin, you can add on. Well, from the survey, we found that actually most students are okay with internet connection. They do not have much problem about the internet issue. Wanxin, what do you think?
So I think this is not a problem in Hong Kong.
Yeah, not really a problem.
Not like in Turkey. Okay,
no.
Thank you. If any guests here would like to ask any question to Dr. Chan or Wanxin, do you have any questions? Mühendislik eğitimi. One of our guests is asking about the engineering education. How is it in online education? Was it good, or I mean, do you have any findings about engineering education? Let me ask that before.
Wanxin, can you answer? You are muted.
Yeah, Wanxin, please open your microphone. Yes, it is still muted. I think she doesn't hear us. Dr. Chan, you can answer the question.
Well,
like.
But indeed, our survey did not particularly ask questions to the engineer student, because we distribute the survey in general to all students. So there are not questions about the engineering education or the programs.
I understand. Okay. Soruyu biraz daha açarsanız. There's another question I'm trying to understand. There is a guest between us now. He's interested in media structure. I know your presentation is not exactly about that, but how is media approach to, I think, COVID pandemic? What was the approach of the media during the COVID pandemic? Because he's an ex-journalist, that's why I think he wants to learn something about Hong Kong. So do you have any information about that?
Wanxin, you want to answer?
What is the media? Creative media or the mass media?
Mass media. We are talking about the mass media.
What are the reports in the mass media about online education in Hong Kong? Mainly about the psychological effects, especially on the children, but not so much on the university students. They found it was difficult for the children to concentrate during the online classes, and also they tend to spend more time playing computer games. And also it was quite detrimental to the students, to the young children, especially in terms of engaging with social activities or even going out or speaking to people.
Okay, thank you so much. Any contribution or question? If not, I will be ending this session.
Sorry, may I ask a question?
Yeah, of course, Dr. Chan.
Because this now, I'm interested in knowing, you mentioned about in Turkey, not many people or families